Hey there, beautiful people. This is Gina Robinson, and you are listening to the Renew Podcast. You are in the right place and always welcome here. Hey, ladies, this is a continuation of an amazing conversation we had with Heather Hamilton on marriage, parenting, step parenting, and blended families. We can't wait to share more with you the stories and the testimonies that she has walked through in this season of her life. Working through that conflict and having, you guys are a family of faith and strong values, but also if he's going to between two homes and visiting, you have your rules and mom's rules may be different.
Sure.
We talked about that. I think that's a real thing that people deal with is the whole okay, you're parenting this way. And then, it's kind of like going to grandma's house, it's like you have to start all over. No.
And sometimes specifically with teenagers, I mean, they even if it's not a blended family situation, but it's just between you and your spouse, they'll try to play each other to get in between you. So I'm glad you brought that up because I was kind of wondering how did you navigate co-parenting during the teenage phase, especially when teenagers are, they're self-absorbed. They're just trying to get what they want.
The quickest way they can find it.
Oh, man. It's so funny that you asked that. That is one of the hardest things. And for us, we haven't always had, you can try to have the most co-parenting as you can, but there comes a time where there's friction there. And so we parent differently. We know this about each other. We parent differently. I cannot control what happens at his mama's house. And honestly, she can't control what happens at his dad's house, and knowing that where am I going to put my energy? I can stress myself out all day, but I have to trust that the Lord has a plan for him as well. And we talked a little bit about that. So Aiden decided to move back with us. I believe it was fifth grade. He stayed with us fifth and sixth grade. In seventh grade, he decided to move back to his mom's. And that was a really hard time for us. And if I'm being truthful, I'm sure it was hard for her when he decided to move in the fifth grade. So I was getting a dose of, a little bit of what she was feeling like at the same time. And, being able to have a little bit of that perspective, humility in the process, right? Our kids are growing. They're trying to make their own decisions. And sometimes you got to let them walk it out, right? So we it was hard.
Oh, my heart just feels for you when I didn't know that about your story.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of days ago. And I loved what you said, and I'm glad you just said it a minute ago, but it's regardless of the situation, we've got to know and trust that God has the best plans for our children, just like he does for us. And
absolutely.
So even with what we see with our natural eye and the challenges that we're currently facing, it's ultimately having that trust in the Lord that he's going to work it out and he loves them even more than we do.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I needed that perspective. I did not always have that perspective, and my sweet mother-in-law was the one that gave me that.
That's right.
You're right. But I will say, you learn a lot. And then that allowed me to have compassion for his mama on the other side of that, because I couldn't imagine. I didn't have that perspective previously. And I could only imagine how hard that was for her too, And then he decided to move back in the 8th grade, and then he stayed here and has grown. And at the same time, that's when it's really important that you encourage the relationship for both sides. At the end of the day, he's such a well-rounded kid, and I want him to be able to have a relationship with everybody, his mom, his stepdad, his dad, me. And if that means that I need to step back in the process or say, hey, go do this, then that's a little bit of what stewarding looks like, what you said exactly is that, what you're seeing, may not be what you want to do, but it's encouraging and doing the right thing, if you will,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Tell us what your family little motto is. Remember you told me that?
say what you mean and do what you say.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
say what you mean and do what you say, or
Yes.
mean what you say is
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that.
say what you mean and mean what you say. And
Yes.
so that was one of the big things for us. And really that just came because, again, growing up in those younger years, you're going to say whatever you think you can say to get around it, right? And so let's be real. Somebody that's so young can create a lot of drama if
Yes.
you let them create drama. And I don't mean it. I don't think it was done hurtfully, but I think at the end of the day, a child's gonna do. They want. Not even a child. Let's be real. Humans do whatever is easiest.
Yes.
We all want to do what's easy.
Convenient.
Yes.
Love
Yes.
the convenience.
Yes. And so a lot of that was, well, so-and-so said this. Did they really, calling it for what it was. And then really I started saying it, say what you mean what you say. We will speak truth in this house. What does that look like? That kind of thing. And so, yeah.
I love
I
it
still
when
say
you
that.
said that. Do you?
Yeah.
Well, there's just little things. It's like having something like that. I thought was just a great idea because, like, when things are off kilter, like, okay, what's our family motto or
Yeah.
what's our
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and just kind of just, prophetically, just speaking it out loud
Yeah.
because you're saying, yeah, we're going to speak truth in this house.
Right.
Might not always feel good, but this is the Robinson's truth. This is
Yeah.
what we stand on. This is how we do things in our family,
Right.
and that type of thing. So,
Yeah, and I should say, an example, and I should put some background to that, I should say. So, when you are, I shared this with you. So when I talk with my boys, I make them look at me now because this is a lesson learned, right? If they're not looking at me, they're just like, yeah, right?
I'll say, what did I
Yeah.
just say? And they're like,
Yes. And so I'll say, okay, tell me, or I'll also say, tell me when you're ready to hear me or when you're ready to listen,
Yes.
and really get their attention first. And because of this, when Aiden was a little bit younger, he would say something that may not have been the whole story. And so a lot of times what happens is you get a partial story and you're like, why would that person say that about me? Or,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
automatically get offended or something like that.
you're getting your
And
gun
then-
loaded.
Yeah, right? And then you're like, and I not all the time did I handle it correctly in the younger years, but it's like, what in the world? And you automatically get offended when in actuality it's that they were half listening to the question. They gave you a half answer that you're now building an arsenal against. And so that was why I started that, was because
Really?
yeah, because when he's asked a question, I want you to tell the full story. Don't give a partial story, but make sure you mean what you say and say what you mean. And that's where that came about, because a lot of times we would have conflict. The parents would have conflict based off what was said one way
Yeah.
versus the other. And so that was one way that I tried to mitigate it, to say, that's not, that was not true. We did do this, or, we
Yeah.
didn't do this, or whatever that looked like. And so really he's probably going to listen to this and now he'll know why I say that as much as I do. But that's what started it, was to say, mean what you say. Look up, make eye contact, answer the question for what it is, so that that you give a full story. And let's be real, it's going to happen. In blending, there's going to be
it
times.
happens in any family.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
true.
Yes.
Just like you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yes.
Yes. It's just a little bit, emotions run a little bit higher on the
Yes.
blended family side of things, I think. And then the other thing is, like, for us, my other person's not living in my household, right? So if it's my husband, it's a
Correct.
quick, like, hey, can we go upstairs really quick? Let's talk about this.
We gotta get on the
We
same
can go
page.
ahead and get this taken
Yeah.
care of. Yeah, it's not. And on top of that, sometimes it's like you just don't even get the opportunity to explain yourself,
Right, yeah.
And so when that happens, it's like you're just getting bombarded with all this information. You're like, but my heart behind it was this, and you never really truly get to share your heart behind it necessarily. And so figuring out how are you okay with not having the heart behind it, which is really hard because I always say, I think you say this sometimes too, I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Oh,
so
big time.
Right?
But the older I get, I just don't care. No, I'm kidding.
So I will say, I think it's more
Is
that
this
you
redeemed, Gina?
right? I think you learn that you're just like someone's, there's a high likelihood that you will be misunderstood. And if you're
Yes.
not given the opportunity to share your heart, then unfortunately that just then that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And then you get to demonstrate, what it means to truly forgive and move forward even when you don't necessarily get the closure that you want. And I think that's a really big lesson.
That's hard.
It is super hard.
Like, because I really want things resolved or better.
Sure.
So like if there's whatever it is, if it's in my parenting or a marriage, like if it's broken, I want it fixed.
Yes.
But, how I go about that is what God's concerned about. It's like,
yes. And is my first reaction going to fix this or make it worse?
Yes.
Right?
Like, we're probably going to war, first of all. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, but I thought about that in your responses because boys, it's just so fun that we all raise boys. So sorry to the girl moms out there because we don't raise girls, but we talk to our friends that do.
Right.
But Lauren parents boys. I've done that. Mine are adults now. And you guys are in kind of like the dredge of things. So,
Yes,
sorry.
we are. That's what we were talking about Sunday.
I know. But I think one thing that comes up, whether you're in a blended family, whether you've been divorced or you're in a traditional family, the main thing that I think there's some things that people go through now is working night shift, or there's one parent that's really more present than the other, not because it's because of what their job is doing.
Sure.
I know William is in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And so you had to do a lot of parenting and disciplining and all the things and he's did his part too, but can you share a little bit about that and maybe some things you guys work through to help, because that's when conflict comes. And then you have to talk about all the things that happened while he was working on his shift.
Let me catch you up.
Yes.
Right.
And you're going to need to sit down for this one.
Yes, absolutely. So like we talked about previously, disciplining is always one of those things for any parent. It doesn't matter if you're a blended family or you're a traditional nuclear family. Like, be on the same page with how you're going to discipline. Because if you're not, then that's where you're going to have conflict. Yeah. And what I should say on the blended family side of things is that the biological parent should be the one that not necessarily. I mean, it should be a group discussion between spouses of how you're going to discipline. Yeah. However, when it comes to passing that on to the children, I would encourage that the biological parent is the one that leads in that. Yes, because otherwise, you're creating an opportunity for resentment. And so that was one of those early conversations. They are really important. And 15 years later, you will still be wishing you would have had that early conversation if you don't. And so William and I were on the same page with that from the forefront. And so yes, he works night shifts. And so when he's not there, I have to uphold the rules that we have within our family, and he has supported me in that process. My kids know that as well. My stepson as well as my biological son. I will say my kids because I don't label my boys, and I'm sorry. I think if that offends anybody, I apologize, but they're just they're my kids at the end of the day. Yeah. William and I are on the same page in regards to how we discipline, because the other piece to that is we knew if we have our own children, we did not want there to be we wanted to be fair across the board. Yeah. And so if I wasn't able to discipline Aiden, but we had our own children, and then I'm supposed to be disciplining Andrew and those kinds of things, it just gets really muddy really quickly. And so if you have that conversation early, get on the same page, then you have that. there is a level of respect that has to be built for that to be successful, though, and so if you come into a blended family relationship and you just quickly try to lay down the law, it may not be received really well. But it's the importance of connecting with your stepchildren, building that rapport. That's such a medical terminology there.
I know.
But creating, really what that is creating the relationship in order to have that healthy respect of, this is what mom says, whether she's your biological mom or your stepmom, it's still to be respected. It's still to be listened to. And if you've raised any children at all, you know that you need the support of your spouse in that. Because if you don't have it, then that makes that a little bit more challenging.
Well, I was thinking about the family out there that may not be on the same page right now. Maybe that's just where they are. Unity is great, but we know that nothing's perfect, and you may have your thing. But I want to encourage people, wherever you are, if you're in a situation where you just can't get through it and it's just a cycle and you keep ending up in the same place, where you feel like you're not getting anywhere, that would frustrate me, and that does frustrate me. But I would encourage you to seek some godly counsel and maybe to get some family counseling, because that is not a bad thing.
No.
We're talking, we want to be spiritually healthy, seeking God's word, but we also want to lean into those that are wiser, that are professionals, that maybe handle these things and can give us like some tactics and new ways to try things.
Sure.
I think, many times, I can remember parenting and I'm like, gosh, I wish I had done it this way. And I don't think there's any parent that probably hasn't felt that way. But I remember connecting and building rapport. A lot of times it was in the car.
Yeah.
Especially with boys.
I've heard with boys that you can have good conversations, better quality conversations if you're side by side. So if you're doing anything shoulder to shoulder instead of face to face.
Yeah.
And that has, not that that's every boy, but I know at least for my relationship, especially with my oldest, who's now 15, I've noticed that a lot. Like he'll just ask all kinds of questions. And I'm like, wow, why didn't I do this years ago?
Can I add one other secret?
Yes.
Add food to that.
Oh, yes.
And you're golden,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
so
yes.
like we would have day dates, if you will. It always consisted of, hey, let's go grab ice cream, which was really, okay, if I knew something was a little bit off kilter or that kind of thing, like, let's go grab something to eat. And it never fails. You just create the atmosphere for it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't prepared for what was just let out. But
you know what
There's
been lots of car conversations. I'm like, where am I even going?
Or it's like, let me fix my face. Don't respond right now. Don't make it look like your emotions are all right here. Yes.
I know.
But absolutely.
Just don't show the shock factor, right? I'm like, okay.
Which Erin says I have a hard time controlling my face anyway. So I'm like, it's better if we're side by side so I can at least turn to the side.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, and it's funny because so I learned this skill because children perceive nonverbals so much better, I think, than adults do. And so you would, and sometimes, let's be real, they're going to tell you something because they know that it's not what you would want to do, and they're waiting for the shock value. Like, let me drop this on my stepmom or stepdad or whatever that looks like, And so I would get to the point where I'm like, okay, fix my face. Like, I know what's about to happen, and I could literally, no emotion, right? Nonverbal, 100%. You're not going to get this from me. And so now it's funny because I process things like that, and people I have had team members ask me, why are you looking at me like that? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm really just thinking right now. This is my thinking face, because I had such a hard time controlling my face. Yes. And now I'm like, now you get straight face while I'm processing.
I'd be like, I can't read you right now. And I'm like, oh, good.
I'm waiting.
I've worked on this.
I know.
And then the next question is, and what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? You turn it back on them. Tell me your thoughts on that. And then that opens the conversation, and it's not based on, I'm not letting what's going through my mind come out first.
Yeah.
So
That's so
very
true.
wise. Yes.
Well, this is the part of the episode that I just want to ask you. Is there some things you wish you had known early on? Maybe even some things that you would have done differently. I had written down just, I think when we were working through really more, we talked about discipline, but we also talked about communication. We've talked about seeking godly counsel, but to the mom out there, usually it's the mom that runs the the emotional person in the family. How would you kind of guide her in this season? Things that you would like her to know and encourage her during this time.
yeah. So I think the biggest thing is know that you're not alone. So many times I feel like we think that it's just us. Like nobody else has ever experienced this. And when we start to think that through, let's call it like it is. That's the enemy's game plan. Like we know that his main goal is to kill, steal, and destroy. He wants to destroy the family unit. The fact that we have blended families and there's restoration, it
makes him so mad.
Yes. And so, when you're in the middle of it, it can be really hard, and just know to give yourself a little bit of grace in the process. You will get it wrong. It doesn't matter whether you
say that again.
Right?
We all need to hear that.
You will get it wrong. I get it wrong all the time. But being able to know that, one, I'm not alone in this. Sometimes you have to ask for forgiveness, right? It's okay to say, I'm sorry, I messed up. I shouldn't have responded the way that I did. That's to my husband as well as to my stepson, but just calling it like it is. You don't have to hold the world on your shoulders. And sometimes in a blended family, it feels like you are, or that everybody's, is criticizing what you're doing, and that's not the heart behind why you did what you did. It's going to happen. Give yourself grace. You're not alone. And honestly, you're just disrupting what the enemy wants, which is amazing. So keep doing it, keep fighting for your family. Keep trying to make connection. And I think we share this. I can't quite remember because I think we talk about so many different things. But if you're raising a teenager, you're going to feel like they hate you. Right? Mm-hmm. Can we just say that?
Yes.
Or a preteen, if they're in puberty, I should say.
Oh, the hormones.
Right. Like, they don't even know why they woke up and they're angry today, but they are.
School teachers.
Yes. And I bring that up because, as I was praying and preparing for our conversation, is to say, like, I'm really thankful that I had those early years with Aiden, because it allowed me to build relationship. It allowed me to stand on something that had we gotten married when he was 12 years old or 13 years old, I would have possibly ran for the hills, It's like, what is going on? That was
the Lord knew, because there are people that are getting married and, like you said, they're blended in their teenagers.
Yes.
But he really does know what we can handle with him, doesn't he?
Absolutely. And know that keep pressing, keep doing the good things. It may feel like it's not seen. It may feel like it's not appreciated, but it matters. The littlest things matter,
Yeah. And consistency compounds.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And so it builds on. Sometimes you're in, what is it? The days are long and the years are short.
Yes.
And so sometimes it can feel very monotonous and pointless and a waste of time to keep doing the small, consistent things to get to their heart. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I finally am seeing a little bit of fruit of that.
Yeah.
And it gives you that little extra,
yes.
Okay, I can keep doing it.
Oh.
Absolutely. I read something the other day that said children spell love Time. And just put in the time, be consistent. Even when you feel
that's
like it's
youth
not.
ministry 101.
Yes. Right?
It is. Yes. That's just time. Yes. They just want your time.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
It does just kind of feed over to all relationships. I think I wanted to share this Christmas, now that my kids are adults, it was making me think of love languages.
Yeah.
So like we did that book, and it is a classic, and I think it's helped so many people. But one thing I knew early on was one of my oldest love language was gifts and surprises. Because I just saw his reaction when he didn't like the gift and when he did like the gift. And I'm like, whoa. He's so disappointed if it wasn't like very intentional, and I'm like, oh, such a firstborn, expectations.
All that birth order, that's a real thing.
But it just was sweet because I'm like, oh, God, but over Christmas, because he has a job now and he's making his own money, praise God, he's like, he bought us the greatest gifts. And you should have seen his face, like, telling us about them. And, anybody that explains their gift when they give it, they love giving gifts, And so I'm like,
realized I do that a lot. I didn't realize it.
And it's your love language.
Is that your love language?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Gifts and surprises. It could literally just be somebody puts a piece of candy on my desk, and I'm like, oh, I feel so seen and loved.
That is so awesome.
It is definitely my love language.
And it's just, and I guess just got just full circle seeing your children operate in the things that you knew when they were younger. It's like it really is in them, and it brought me great joy.
Yes.
And so I just want to encourage moms out there, and that there are good things on the other side of the season you're in right now.
Yes.
And the things that you're sowing and praying for, they're worth it.
Yes.
They are so worth it. But I do not do it alone. And I think that's just key, what you said, is that you can feel alone. You can feel like you're a failure. You're like, is their kid doing what my kid's doing? Well, they probably are, and they're not talking. Or it doesn't have to be the same thing. Every parent struggles.
Sure.
And they want to get it right, but they won't, we want God to minister to our children and speak to them, but they're going to fail, and we're going to fail. And this has just been such a great conversation. I feel like that we're going to get lots of emails and questions. And so with me saying this today, Lauren and I love getting feedback. We pretty much race to see who's going to answer the email first. But the fun thing about that is hearing your encouragement and what's ministered to your heart. And also what, the Lord's really doing in your life and testimonies. So if you have a story out there, if you have a question for Heather, we can get those emails to her.
Absolutely.
And she has got a wealth of information and wisdom because she's walked through it. And so if you are in that specific season where you are a step parent or blended family, please, know that you can reach out, and there's plenty of resources out there. Sometimes you just got to ask the question to be able to find an answer.
Which is so awesome, because I feel like when I was, again, we were so young, I don't feel like there was a lot of resources 15 years ago, but there are so many. And I love that we have a lot here within our church to be able to encourage our people.
Well, thank you for taking time off work to come chat and hang out with us. We appreciate
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
I just think your story is amazing. Tell William, thank you, that you were able to come and share some things about him
Oh, bless
and how
him.
you guys met, which is fun.
And we appreciate him too. He's
Yes.
around here a lot.
He is.
He is around here a lot. Everybody, we love you guys. Remember the episodes post on the 1st and 15th of the month. And so it's fun in 2024. We've got great things happening. Got some new guests coming up that have plenty of gifts and talents for the kingdom that we can't wait to share with you guys. Be encouraged today. We want to pray for you. That email is also, Lauren and I love getting your prayer requests. And so feel free to send those at renew@opendoorchurch.com. Lauren, you got anything you want to say?
No, I appreciate you coming on, and just
Absolutely. Thank you for having
for
me.
those of you that don't know her personally, she has given so much of her time at Open Door and serving, on top of being a mom of and working in the medical field and all the other things that you do. And
Such an honor.
It's just, we really appreciate you.
Such an honor.
Yes.
It's always my pleasure.
Amen. Well, we love you guys, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Bye.
Well, ladies, thank you for joining us on the Renew podcast. And remember, please subscribe, share, and tune in wherever you're listening on your favorite podcast platform.